some kind of service to humanity has always been part of my ideals. As a ham radio operator, I helped up after the Loma Prieta earthquake. I sort of fell into this latest endeavor when I had a couple of angina attacks a couple of years ago. So for people who aren't familiar with it, that's a can be a very crushing feeling under the breastbone. And it drove me to see my cardiologist, and he performed what's called an angioplasty on me. This is the latest in heart surgery. More and more angioplasties are being performed, and fewer open chest cardiac surgery is being performed now. It simply means that he took a long, thin tube called a cannula and inserted it in a vein in my arm and threaded it down to where there was a block caused by cholesterol, whatnot, fatty substances, and then inflated it to crush the stuff away. And he also provided me with a stent, which is a little wire mesh device that keeps the artery open. So I stayed in the hospital 2 days, angioplasty the first morning, the rest of the time recouping, and sent me home. And it's been, I haven't had any problems with it since. That's 2 years ago. As many of you know, I'm an avid hiker. My wife and I patrol the East Bay Regional Park District trails quite often, and so I also, however, went through the Washington Hospital cardiac rehab program. So that involves three sessions a week for 6 weeks, exercise machines, doing various weight exercises, etc. And while I was doing this, the head nurse that is in charge of this operation noticed me, and so toward the end of the 6 weeks, she asked me if I wanted to become a visitor to heart patients. And so I've done that. There is an organization. It's 60 years old. It is a heart patient support group. It's nationwide. It's called Mended Hearts, and it involves taking people who have had some kind of heart surgery, including angioplasty, and training them to go into the cardiac wards and talk to the patients before or after they've had their surgery, and tell them that there is life after angioplasty. Well-meaning relatives may think that they know something about what heart patients should do, and sometimes it gets around the patient thinks, oh, I can't play tennis anymore, I can't do this or that or the other. I'm there to tell them that there is life after heart surgery. And as an example of a guy who's 81 years old, but still goes out hiking on the trails, and so that's my job. I perform it without any compensation, except a good feeling about what I'm doing. So that's basically all that I do. I give patients a packet, and this has a lot of good information for them also. This is something that's put out by Mended Hearts with the concurrence of heart surgeons, and so we have little things like that to give them, and it helps to, I'm only there with them for maybe 10-15 minutes, so this gives me a chance to give something to them for reinforcement. And actually, that's about all I have to say. I'm very glad that I can perform this service. It fits in with my humanistic ideals, and so that's all I have to say. I invite questions now.
Test.
We got a mic to roll.
We have a lot of time for questions today.
Excuse my ignorance, but where is the Washington Hospital?
Washington Hospital is in Fremont. It's actually called Washington Township Hospital. That's a bit of an anachronism. Back in 1960, when there were 6 little farming communities in that area, and they decided to consolidate and become Fremont. And there was one of them that was called Washington Township, and so that's where the name comes from. It's the main hospital for Fremont, Newark, parts of Hayward, and it's going under quite a bit of construction. We have an excellent joint replacement center there, and I can attest to the skill of those people, because I have a knee that they put in, and it's working beautifully.
It's a private hospital?
Pardon?
Private or public?
It's public.
Public.
Yeah. We have been looking around to affiliate ourselves with another hospital in the area. However, the only other one is St. Rose, which is a Catholic hospital in Hayward, and they're in a very bad financial shape. They said, well, we're doing the Lord's work, so we shouldn't pay much attention to the financial end of things. We just need to do what we think is necessary. And they're in receivership now.
Hi, Bill. I just had a question over here. I was just wondering, with the people you talk to, does religion ever come up? Do they ever, the people you talk to, say, well, I knew the Lord was with me, and how do you deal with it if any people you talk to mention something religious?
You know, I've never had that question come up. I met a Catholic priest one time who is on the staff of. We have a meditation room, and if people want that kind of consultation, etc., why they're welcome to use that facility. But no one has ever asked me what my beliefs might be, and actually, if I'm constrained to not bring that into the conversation, which is okay with me.
I didn't know that Fremont was composed of several. I didn't know that Fremont was composed of several different little townships, and Washington. There's a Washington, Maine, and it's in my area, my Knox County area, that I do genealogical with. So my ears perked up. What were the names of the other little communities that became Fremont?
I don't remember all of them. I know there was Centerville and a couple others. When that was happening back in the early '60s, they invited Newark to come into the consolidation, but Newark decided they wanted to go their own way. So that's why we have Newark on the east side or west side of 880, and Fremont on the east side.
Would you like to describe the training that you received to participate in this visitor
yes,
program?
The training consisted of tagging along with one of the other accredited visitors and visiting patients. And so you learn the rules of kind of the rules of engagement there. There are things like how to approach a patient, how to find out if they have some kinds of concerns that can be dealt with. But that's essentially it. I went with my mentor about 5 times before I cut loose and started doing it by myself.
Bill, I know you, this is Sandy over by the side. I know that you are a Humanist Celebrant. Here I am.
Yeah.
I know you're a Humanist Celebrant. Have you officiated at any ceremonies that you could tell us about?
Unfortunately, no. I became a celebrant 2 years ago. My wife thinks that I should get rid of it. I'm trying. I have a website. I'm trying to get advice from fellow celebrants on because I would like to perform some ceremonies, but so far, and I have gotten some good advice from a fellow who's over in Half Moon Bay, who's also a celebrant. I hope I can be successful in the future.
Down here, Bill, how often do you do these visits?
Twice a week.
Always?
Tuesdays and Thursdays.
And that is how many individuals?
Well, sometimes I go up to the 5th floor, that's the cardiac floor, and I go to the nurse's station, and I say, "Do you have any cath lab patients?" And she say, "Yes, we've got 3," and then I get take their names down on the bed that they're in, and I go around and talk to them. Other times, nobody. So, but I feel it's better to go through the routine, even if they're not here. And Washington Hospital is going to put in 2 more catheter labs, so that they can have up to 3 angioplasties simultaneously. So I want to get in on, I want to learn more about that and find out if we can get access to the patients before they have their surgery as well as after.
So how did your, over here, the angina, how did that change? Did it change you significantly, that experience? I mean, both in terms of diet and then beliefs?
As I say, it's pain in the breastbone. The first time I had it, I'd turned in at night and sleeping, and then I felt this breastbone pain, and I did deep breathing, and that seemed to help alleviate it, and it went away in 5 minutes or so. The next time was when Cy and I were scouting a trip for this group, and we went up a moderate grade and came back, and so that was enough to convince me that I had to take it seriously and go see my cardiologist.
But once you'd experienced, you had the stents, right? Is that right? Put in?
Well, since then I haven't had any angina attacks. So, and I see my cardiologist regularly.
So in terms of way of life, beliefs, nothing changed?
No. Now, some people that I contact, some patients that I contact in the line of my duty, really need to change their diets. I talked to one patient. He had his 5th stent put in, and he had a real beer belly. And it hurts me to see things like that. I try to steer people in the right direction, but I can't. I'm not a doctor, so I can't prescribe anything. I can just suggest that they talk to their doctors about things we might bring up.
So, Bill, I was wondering, do you get a lot of, I imagine you talk about things other than health while you're visiting, and I'm wondering if there's a lot of concern about finances, state of the family,
not
that sort of
so
thing?
much.
Huh?
Yeah, I haven't had
How long's a typical visit?
about 10 minutes.
Okay.
And as I say, this angioplasty is now the treatment of choice for people who come in with heart attacks, because it's quick and it does the job practically all the time. So and we see fewer open chest operations these days. A person goes in, has to have an open chest operation. They're going to be in there for 7 to 10 days. And the hospital likes to have a bed for everybody who comes in. So but that's the general procedure.
Hi, Bill. I'm Marie here.
Yes.
And you might have answered my question, but and also I came in a little bit late, so you might have answered a little bit.
I'm having a little trouble hearing you, Marie.
Oh, you might have answered my question just a moment ago, but I thought I would ask you to elaborate on it. You say in here that you recovered so much more quickly than the average angioplasty patient. And I wondered if you could describe the procedure just a little bit, unless you already did. I apologize.
I'm having a hard time hearing you.
I wonder if you could describe your recovery compared to others that seem to take longer.
Oh, my own recovery? I was in the hospital for 2 days. Angioplasty the first morning, the first day, and my wife could actually go in the cath lab and watch my cardiologist perform the procedure.
Is that typical or is that unusual?
That's fairly typical. Uh-oh. Yeah. So, yes.
You mentioned that you learned how to approach people, the patient, and how to find out what was on their mind. Could you share with us how you did that? How you were taught to do that?
Well, I usually I go in and I say, "Hello, I'm Bill Rausch, and I'm an accredited visitor to heart patients. And how are you feeling today?" And I try to get them to talk about themselves, see if they have any concerns or maybe misconceptions of what's going on. And that's the general kind of thing that I try to do leading into the conversation. Well, how are you doing today? Do you have any concerns that I might be able to help you with? So that's the general approach.
Hi again. I am actually in the Kaiser plan, go to the one in Redwood City, but every now and then I go to Stanford Hospital because they have twice a week on Mondays and Wednesdays from 12:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. in the atrium of the hospital. They have a musical group. Sometimes there have been even kids dancing and so on, and the whole thing is free, and it's usually wonderful. Now, when the fellow that normally introduces it is the one in charge of that, he says that Stanford has musicians that go to rooms for people that want to or need it, patients, and there is no charge. So the idea is that music is an antidepressant, and almost, I would think, a very high level antidepressant. And I was wondering if Washington Hospital has music for patients to help them cope with the depression that might come along for them.
I haven't heard anyone suggest that sort of approach. I think if people came forward who wanted to do that, they might be looked on favorably. But right now we do not do that.
So, Bill, if you can't hear somebody else, I'm at the back here, right in front of you. If you can't hear anybody talking, we'll try and turn the volume up. But if you walk in front of the speakers, it might be easier too, because you're behind the speakers there.
I want to compliment you on what you're doing. I think it's great. And another thing, I assume you're not getting paid. Is that right? I assume that you're not getting paid.
I'm not what?
But that you're a volunteer. There's no.
Oh yes,
yeah,
yes.
Okay.
I'm not paid.
Oh, okay. I think you don't tell them that you're a humanist or an atheist. I'd like them to know, but I realize there could be a problem. There could be a problem in saying that, but it would be good for the reputation of atheists or humanists if you let them, if somehow they knew, hey, this guy is atheist, he's a really good person helping us out. This is because I think, we have an image problem, that a lot of people think atheists are bad people. So I think it would be helpful if they find out. But I understand why you wouldn't want to tell them.
Yeah, I know the problem, but the hospital wants us to be neutral on the subjects, and so I go along with that.
Yeah, the Stanford people are paid, those musicians, and they also, people might be interested to know that every Tuesday and Thursday, anyway, twice a week, they have a little concert down in the atrium, and anybody can go, it's free, and it's all different kinds of music. It's very pleasant.
Very nice.
So do you get questions from the patients about lifestyle, about hiking and other activities?
Well,
since you've got that experience.
Yeah, I usually bring that up as part of my spiel, so that they don't think that they're going to have to go into bed rest for the rest of their lives or some other fantasy that some relative has foisted on them.
Yeah, you've got to present it as something you do, but you're not a doctor, so you're not recommending it.
That's right, yes.
Okay.
Well, let's go back to music again. Music at Stanford. Well, okay. Now, in the atrium, it's actually Wednesdays and Fridays, not Thursdays and Tuesdays. What sometimes in the summer they have, I think on Thursdays and Tuesday at about noon, outside near the cancer center, which is not very far from the atrium, they have music outdoors that can be also very good. And they only do that in the summer. Now, the other thing is, yes, Zena, absolutely right, the musicians do get paid, but the patients, they don't have to pay a dime to have them go to the room and play something that would give them a high.
That's very good, yes.
Any more questions? We've got a man here with, what was it, 81 or 82 years now of experience, right?
Well, it's January 16th, and I'm 81.
81, okay, 81 and a bit. So we could open up the scope. There's 81 and a bit years of questions going here.
Well, I was just going to add on the topic of music that I found out a couple weeks ago that at the Palo Alto Medical Foundation building in Mountain View on El Camino, just south of 85, they have a grand piano up on the second level, and they say any experienced pianist is welcome to play it any time. So if any pianists out there, Carlos is a wonderful pianist, but anybody who wants to play there can play there anytime, they said. You just show up and start playing the piano.
Well, we have a piano in the lobby at Washington Hospital, but we have no piano players. And so if anybody lives over that way who would like to tickle the ivories a bit, I'm sure they'd be welcomed with open arms.
I might have made a mistake when I said that the outdoor concerts, when they happen, could be on a Tuesday or a Thursday, but I think they can also be on a Monday. Okay, but that you go to the website, that, you know, you can get on the website. I'm on the website, and I'm told when something is going to happen. Now, if I have a second that we're talking about music, and I heard the word piano, I just want to say a little thing about airlines and piano, okay? Go back to the 70s. My late wife and I were married in Rochester, New York, where is where her parents lived. And then for our honeymoon, we went to the U.S. Virgin Islands, okay? And so we took a 747 of American Airlines to San Juan, Puerto Rico, and then a small carrier to St. Thomas. Well, anyway, the thing that I bring all this up, in those days, at the very end of the passenger area, there was a piano. There was a little bar, okay? Not bar, I'm sorry, like a, whatever. And sometimes there was a pianist aboard, I mean, one of the passengers, and he'd play there. Well, the flight attendant told us when we asked her about that, he said, well, last week on this route, there was a rich family that were going to have their honeymoon, and they invited a lot of people. And one of them started playing the piano. A lot of people sort of got turned on. I guess it was dancing music. And then a lot of passengers started going down the aisle. You know, the 747s have two aisles, and they were going one direction, then around and around. And the pilots got a little concerned because the weight of the plane was changing, and they have to keep it balanced. They had to. But anyway, that's all I wanted to say about music and planes.
Bill, I wanted to ask you about something you said in your talk. You said that you and Saya monitor or patrol one of the local parks. Could you tell us more about what you're looking for, what power you have, things like that?
Oh, okay. Yeah, we've been with the hiking patrol of the East Bay Regional Park District since 2005, I believe it was, and we can go out and walk the trails. Sometimes we come across a poor befuddled hiker who doesn't know where they are, and we can always carry extra maps with us and mark down which way they should go to get back to their car. Some people start out and they see the map racks at the start of the trail, but I don't need no stinking map. So they go out, and after about 2 or 3 miles, how do I get back to my car? So if we come across poor souls like that, why we haul out a map and we mark it down and get them back. One of the biggest problem that the Park District has is vehicle break-ins at the start of the trail, and we look for people in cars that park there, and they just stay in that one place. They don't get out and hike. And they're looking for an opening to get out and smash a window. People leave purses, laptops, things like that on the seat cushions in their cars. If we come across somebody on the trails, we say, we hope you locked your car and keep your valuables out of sight. Those are the biggest things. We did come across a marijuana farm once, and actually it wasn't the farm itself, but these people were carrying coils of plastic hose and buckets, and so it was a pretty that's a pretty good tip that they're up to growing something.
What did you do?
Well, we do have a radio, and we called it in. It's up to us. We patrol whenever we feel like we'd like to get out on the trails. And of course, this is a good exercise for us too, so we do it fairly frequently. There are about a couple hundred volunteers who do this, either on foot, horseback, bicycle. So I think it's a real money saver for the park district. They tell us that we're good for $2 million a year of assistance to the parks.
Any more questions?
I want to make a comment about something that you're not doing, and I think it's important that you not do this. It's a tendency of a lot of people, I think, feel when they visiting a patient who has a serious problem, is to give them some reassurances. Everything's going to be okay. You'll pull through. And we don't know what we're talking about, and it's a phony reassurance. And I wonder if this comes up in the training.
Yes, it does, and we're careful not to prognosticate very much about what's going to happen to the patient. We try to give them some good tips. We hand out these information packets, and they've got information about diet, exercise, medication. So that's as much as we can do.
You brought some other props there. Were they yours, Bill?
Pardon?
Looks like you brought some other props. Was there?
Other props. Pretty much the same sort of thing, but let's see. This is one about fighting arteriosclerosis. Here's one about angina and cardiac directions. This is put out by a drug company. And this is a little thing that essentially says, get this. So that's what's in my props.
Yeah, Bill, you were a heart patient yourself. Do they pick people who haven't been heart patients for this particular test?
What about?
I say, are people who have not been heart patients, are they asked to join this group to be a counselor?
You can join the group, but you can't visit patients as an accredited visitor.
Okay, you have to be a heart patient yourself.
But people can join and come to our monthly meetings anyway, because we have cardiologists talking about new procedures, etc. And there's always food. So
that's good.
So you don't have to have had a heart procedure, but only people who have had it can become accredited visitors.
Are there accredited visitors for other conditions such as cancer?
I don't know. I've never seen that. That might be a good idea. One more.
Just tell me when to stop, please. But this is actually related to something electronic, okay? Because you did mention that you're a ham radio operator. And my late father-in-law was one too. And back in those days, to become a ham radio operator, you had to learn, even though you could use the radio to communicate via voice, you had to learn Morse code, okay? And he was super, I mean, he was a PhD in physics and very, very smart guy, but he was not that good at Morse code. His wife, whom he also wanted to learn Morse code, oh, she was faster than the Dickens on Morse code. But my question is, nowadays, if I wanted to become a ham radio operator, do I also have to learn Morse code?
No. That requirement was dropped almost 10 years ago. However, at least at one time, I could copy 20 words a minute. So when I got there are different grades of licenses, and back when the code requirement was part of the exam, if you got the kind of the basic level exam license, you had this 7 words a minute, then it went up to 13, and then 20. And I passed all of those for my, but no, it's, people still use it. It has its place. If you're trying, hams have, some of them have this passion that's kind of like stamp collecting, of finding exotic stations to contact all around the world, and if you, it's Morse code is still used for a lot of those because it's unlike a voice, where you have different levels as you speak. Morse code is just on or off, so it has a better signal-to-noise ratio than ordinary voice. And so there still are people who use, they call it CW for continuous wave, but it's not required as part of the FCC license procedure. I used to also be a licensed examiner for the FCC decided they wanted to get out of the license testing business for hams, and so we're a self-policing kind of organization now.
Any more questions? Well, Bill, we've got about one more? Oh, sorry.
This isn't really a question, it's more a comment. But you were talking about how you were a heart patient, and so you now volunteer with patients undergoing heart procedures. And then somebody mentioned, or possibly you, about those working with cancer patients. And I thought I would mention that I used to be a volunteer at Lucille Packard Children's Hospital. I was a baby cuddler. And I mention this because I don't think people realize how many volunteer possibilities there are. But at Packard Children's Hospital, I used to go every Sunday evening for 3 hours. I went from 8 o'clock to 11 o'clock. And I would do everything from hold and feed and change babies if they were healthy enough, to pat them on the stomach if they had had surgery, or even if they couldn't be touched, just to talk with them and coo to them. I'm just mentioning this because there are many, many possibilities at hospitals for people and to volunteer, and you don't know about it until you actually go in and inquire.
We have a dinner, an annual dinner at the hospital for all the volunteers, and the chief operating officer comes to that and gives us praise, and it's something that the hospital couldn't do without. So we have people who, well, somebody comes in and they need a wheelchair, we provide the wheelchair and trundle them wherever they need to go. Even things like that. So it's an integral part of the hospital.
Do you wear a uniform like the candy stripers used to wear, pink and white stripes? Do you wear any distinguishing garments or?
Well, I'm decked out in my volunteer Washington Hospital mandated uniform. So I have my badge here and this vest. The rest of it's my own conception of what I ought to wear as a volunteer. Plain dark pants, white shirt. So people see my badge here, and it has this it says volunteer on it.
Very nice.
That's
Very
it.
nice. I'd like to put in a plug for our sales table. People can borrow those books, but it would be nice if they would donate $1 or so when they do that. And everything is a donation.
Is that your T-shirt as well? You didn't mention the T-shirt.
Oh, the cardiac rehab. Everybody who goes through the cardiac rehab program gets the T-shirt. See, there's something I wanted to mention.
I want to ask about the in the training process. Who is involved in the training? That is, are there psychologists and physicians both, or social workers, or who are teaching you how to do what you're doing?
The National Mended Hearts organization, as I say, Mended Hearts has been in existence for 60 years. They prescribe what has to go into training, and then someone who is already an experienced visitor took me in tow, and we went around to visited patients I think it was about 5 times before they decided I could be cut loose.
Yeah, well, my question was, are there psychologists or psychiatrists who doing the training as well as physicians? Or?
Not on the local level. What they've done, what the national organization has done, is to specify that sort of thing with the assistance of specialists like psychologists as to what the conversation should be.
Oh, got it. Thank you.
Any more questions?
Yeah, this is a quick question, but you might mention it. How often do you go in? How many times a week?
Two times a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Okay.
If I feel like I've got more spare time for this, well, I do it, but I'm kind of a busy guy. I did want to mention that Fremont has the largest percentage of South Asian people in the country. So we have lots and lots of people who speak Urdu or such languages. There is a translation service, but it's very cumbersome to set up. All I can do really is try to find, if there's a family member there with the patient, to have them take it back home, take the packet that I give them back home and get it translated there.
Do you know if other hospitals in the area are doing the same service, or did you mention?
I think, like I say, St. Rose was in Hayward. I think you'd have to go up to Oakland before you find a volunteer service like ours.